Pictured here is what comes in your Kwik Performance AC kit. The plates, spacers, fasteners, pulleys, and tensioner required to do the build are included. In this step, we are going to do some pre-assembly. We'll take the front plate, insert the two 100mm bolts into the holes shown. I find it easier to flip the plate back over. You'll take the shorter tube, place it on first, followed by the water pump brace, the medium tube, and then the longest tube. The last step will be to put on the rear plate onto the bracket as shown. We are going to install the bracket into the two head holes as shown. We're going to only tighten those two finger tight. The water pump brace goes to the upper water pump boss. For this next step, we're going to determine if we have an LS1 or a LS2/LS3 water pump. The difference will be that if you have an LS2, as we do on the test stand, or an LS3, you will need to use the included 3/8 washer. Now that we've determined which water pump we have an LS2, so we're going to use the included 3/8 washer, 20mm bolt, attach it to the upper water pump boss. All the bolts are going to be tightened to only finger tight. We want the bracket to be loose so that in the later step, our torque process goes as planned. Using the 35mm bolts, we're going to attach the AC compressor. Tighten the nuts on the back just to finger tight as with the other steps. The rear of the compressor will be connected to the rear plate via a 3/4 inch small tube and a 55mm bolt. Once again, tighten the nut only to finger tight. We will now begin the torque process by lifting up on the compressor so that it takes the slack out of all the bolt holes in the same direction. We will tighten the two head bolts first. They are going to be tightened to 37 foot-pounds. Then we will follow it up by tightening the water pump brace bolt to 37 foot-pounds as well. Next in the torque sequence are the two front bolts on the AC compressor. They will also be torqued to 37 foot-pounds. It's important to do the front of the compressor first so that it squares the compressor to the bracket. Then follow up with 37 foot-pounds on the rear bolt and nut. Next we're going to install the tensioner with the 75mm bolt. Screw on the nut and go ahead and torque that to 37 foot-pounds. Now we're going to install the upper idler with a 12mm by 55 bolt, a machined idler, and the idler pulley. And go ahead and torque this setup here to 50 foot-pounds. A note here is that the belt is going to be installed on the rear 6 grooves of the 7-groove compressor. To determine what belt length we need, we're going to look at the alt power steering side of the engine. If you have a factory Corvette, or a Kwik Performance alt power steering bracket, or a Kwik Performance alternator only bracket. There are 3 different pulleys that typically go on a Kwik Performance bracket. The 6 3/4 is from a Corvette power steering pump. The 6-inch is from a 98-02 Camaro power steering pump. And the 5.5-inch is what comes with the Kwik Performance power steering pump. One note on the 98-02 6-inch pulley, the offset is off by about 1/16 of an inch. So to get proper alignment, you will need to pull the pulley off of the shaft about that 1/16 of an inch. Another thing that will affect belt length is which alternator you're using. For the Corvettes, we mocked up everything with a Corvette alternator, but if you're using, say, a truck alternator, you will need to measure to see if it is the high output or the standard output. The high output will measure at roughly 2 1/4 inches, and the standard output will be just under 1 3/4 inches. If you have a standard output alternator, it will shorten the belt length by just over an inch. After you've installed the belt and ran the motor, pay attention to where the belt is running on the tensioner pulley. If it looks like it's running off of the front or really close to it, we have included a shim that can go between the front plate and the tensioner to push out the tensioner slightly to get the belt running closer to the center of the pulley. After the belt's installed, it's a good idea to take a look at the tensioner marks on the bottom of the tensioner housing. There are 3 marks on the housing itself and an indicator on the arm. It's best to have it running in the center indicator, but be mindful that after the engine has ran for a while, the belt will take a set and it will loosen.